The palace of Eldora stood like a mountain of crystal under 3 pale moons. Inside its cold walls, Princess Viola looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her silver skin glowed softly. Her violet eyes were empty. Today, she would meet the creature she was forced to marry. A human. An Earthling. She had learned about humans since childhood. Her teachers told her they were violent animals. They killed each other over small things. They lived short lives and burned bright with anger. They were useful only for their planet's resources. Nothing more. And now, her father wanted her to marry one of them. Emperor Keldros sat on his throne in the Great Hall. He was old and tired. The Altheran Empire was dying slowly. Their minds were empty. Their energy sources were failing. Earth had what they needed, but Earth did not trust them. So Keldros made a deal. A marriage between his daughter and a human would seal the peace treaty. It would give Althera access to Earth's resources. Viola walked into the throne room. Her gown flowed like liquid silver behind her. She did not look at her father. She could not forgive him for this. "The human will arrive soon," Keldros said. His voice was flat. "You will greet him with dignity. You will not shame our empire." "You have already shamed it," Vela replied quietly, "by selling your daughter to animals." Keldros did not react. He had stopped caring about her feelings long ago. To him, she was a tool. A pretty face to secure a treaty. Nothing more. The doors opened. Altheran guards walked in first. Behind them came a small group of humans in formal clothes. And in the center of the group stood the man who would become her husband. His name was Tejo. Vela forced herself to look at him. He was shorter than Altheran's. His skin was a warm brown color, not silver like hers. His hair was black and cut short. His eyes were dark and calm. He wore a simple dark suit. No jewelry. No decoration. He looked plain, ordinary. He looked nothing like the monster she expected. Tejo walked forward and stopped before the throne. He bowed deeply to Emperor Keldros. Then he turned to Vela. For a moment, their eyes met. Vela expected to see fear in his eyes, or anger, or lust. She had been warned that human males were driven by base desires. But she saw none of those things. His eyes were quiet, patient, sad, perhaps. He bowed to her as well. Then he spoke in perfect Altheran. His accent was strange, but his words were clear. "Princess Vela," he said, "I know this marriage is not your choice. It is not truly my choice either. But I hope we can find peace between us. I do not expect your love. I do not even expect your kindness. But I hope, one day, you will let me earn your respect." Vela did not know what to say. She had prepared insults. She had prepared cold silence. She had not prepared for this. She turned away without answering. She walked out of the throne room. Her heart was beating strangely in her chest. She did not understand why. That night, she asked her servant about the human. The servant had read his file. "His name is Tejo," the servant said. "He is 32 Earth years old. He was a soldier once, a medic. He saved lives on the battlefield. Then his entire team died in a bombing. He left the military after that. He became a diplomat. He works for peace now. Why did he volunteer for this marriage?" Vela asked. "The file does not say. But there were many candidates. He was not the richest or the most powerful. He simply volunteered. He said he wanted to do something meaningful with his life." Vela sat in silence for a long time. She thought about his words. She thought about his eyes. Humans were supposed to be selfish, violent, stupid. But this man had chosen to leave his home, his planet, his people. He had chosen to live among aliens who hated him. He had chosen to marry a woman who would never love him. Why? What kind of creature did such a thing? The next morning, the wedding ceremony took place. It was cold and formal. Vela spoke the required words. Taeho spoke them too. They did not touch. They did not smile. When it was over, they walked to their separate chambers in the east wing of the palace. Taeho's room was next to hers. A thin wall separated them. Vela could hear him moving around at night. She heard him playing soft music sometimes. Strange earth music with gentle voices and slow rhythms. She did not understand the words, but the sound was not unpleasant. Days passed. Then weeks. Vela avoided him completely. She ate alone. She walked in different gardens. She refused to attend any event where he might be present. The servants whispered about her coldness. They called her the Ice Princess. She did not care, but Taeho never complained. He never demanded her time. He never sent angry messages. He simply existed quietly in the room next to hers. One evening, Vela stood on her balcony and looked down at the palace gardens. She saw a figure moving in the darkness. It was Taeho. He was kneeling in the dirt, working with his hands. He was planting something. She watched him for an hour. He worked slowly and carefully. His movements were gentle. When a servant walked by and laughed at him, calling him a dirt-playing primitive, Taeho only smiled. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small plant. He offered it to the servant as a gift. The servant looked confused. He took the plant and walked away quickly, as if embarrassed. Vela did not understand. Where was the violence? Where was the anger? Any Altheran noble would have demanded punishment for such an insult. But this human simply smiled and offered a gift. She watched until he finished and went inside. The moons moved slowly across the sky. The garden was silent. That night, Vela dreamed of flowers she had never seen. Flowers with soft petals and sweet smells. Flowers that grew in warm earth soil under a single yellow sun. She woke up confused. She was beginning to think that everything she knew about humans was wrong. 2 months passed since the wedding. Vela continued to ignore her human husband. She walked past him in the hallways without looking. She refused to eat at the same table. She pretended he did not exist, but she could not stop watching him from her window. Every morning, before the sun rose, Taeho went to the palace terrace. He sat cross-legged on the cold stone floor. He closed his eyes. He breathed slowly and deeply. He did not move for 1 full hour. Then he stood and performed strange movements. Slow stretches. Controlled punches and kicks. His body flowed like water. Vela had seen Altheran warriors train. They were loud, aggressive. They shouted and struck with fury. But Taeho trained in complete silence. His face was peaceful. His movements were precise. There was no wasted energy. No anger. After training, he went to his garden. The small patch of dirt had grown into something beautiful. Green plants stretched toward the alien sky. Small flowers bloomed in colors Vela had never seen. Red, yellow, orange, pink, earth colors. Warm colors. The other Altherans laughed at him. Gardening was considered low work, fit only for servants. A noble did not touch dirt. But Taeho did not seem to care about what nobles did or did not do. He knelt in the soil every day. He pulled weeds. He watered his plants. He talked to them softly in his human language. One day, Vela's curiosity became too strong. She waited until evening, when the gardens were empty. Then she walked to his terrace. The flowers were even more beautiful up close. They smelled sweet and fresh. Some of them had closed their petals for the night, like sleeping children. They are called roses. Vela jumped. She had not heard Taeho approach. He stood at the edge of the garden, holding a watering can. His clothes were dirty from work. There was soil on his hands. I did not ask, Vela said coldly. I know. But you looked curious. He smiled gently. There was no anger in his face, no resentment, just quiet warmth. Vela did not know how to respond to kindness. She had grown up in a cold palace with cold parents. Kindness was weakness. That was what she had been taught. Why do you do this? She asked, pointing at the garden. You know the others laugh at you. Teho shrugged. Let them laugh. On Earth, we have a saying. The one who plants a garden believes in tomorrow. I plant because I have hope. Hope for what? I do not know yet. Maybe hope that things can grow in strange places. Maybe hope that beauty can exist even where it is not expected. He looked at her. Maybe hope that you will speak to me again someday. Like you are speaking to me now. Vela felt heat rise to her face. She was not used to such direct words. Altheran nobles spoke in circles. They hid their true meanings behind layers of polite language. But this human said exactly what he thought. She turned and walked away without another word. But that night, she did not feel angry. She felt something else. Something she could not name. Over the following weeks, Vela began to change her routine. She walked past the garden more often. Sometimes she stopped to look at the flowers. Sometimes Teho was there. He always greeted her politely. He never pushed her to talk. He simply worked in his garden and let her watch. Slowly, carefully, Viola began to ask questions. What is that one called? A chrysanthemum. It means long life and happiness. And that one? Jasmine. It blooms at night. It smells strongest in the darkness. Vela found herself coming to the garden every evening. She did not sit with Teho. She stood at the edge, arms crossed, pretending she did not care. But she listened to everything he said. He told her about Earth, about blue skies and white clouds, about rain that fell from the sky and made everything grow, about seasons that changed the color of leaves, about oceans so vast that you could not see the end. Viola had never seen an ocean. Althera was a dry world of crystal and stone. Water was precious. It was stored in underground tanks and carefully measured. Do you miss it? She asked one night. Your home? Teho was silent for a moment. He looked up at the 3 moons of Eldura. Yes, he said finally. Every day. I miss the smell of rain. I miss the sound of birds singing. I miss my sister's cooking. He smiled sadly. But I chose to come here. And I do not regret it. Why not? You are surrounded by people who hate you. Your wife will not even look at you. How can you not regret? Teho turned to face her. His dark eyes were serious. Because some things are more important than comfort. Your empire needed resources. My planet needed peace. Millions of lives depended on this treaty. If my sacrifice can prevent war, then my loneliness is a small price. Vela stared at him. She thought about all the Altheran nobles she had known. They cared only about power, about status, about themselves. None of them would sacrifice anything for others. But this human, this simple, dirt-covered human, he had given up everything for strangers. You are strange, Vela said softly. I know. Teho smiled. But strange is not always bad. That night, Vela dreamed of Earth. She dreamed of blue water and green trees. She dreamed of rain falling on her silver skin. She dreamed of walking through gardens filled with flowers she could not name. When she woke up, she realized she had been crying in her sleep. She did not understand why. But she knew something had changed inside her. A small crack had appeared in the wall around her heart, and through that crack, a strange new feeling was starting to grow. Spring came to Aldera. It was a short season, only lasting a few weeks. The ice melted from the crystal mountains. Small streams flowed through the palace gardens. The air became slightly warmer. Vela found herself spending more time with Taeho. She told herself it was just curiosity. She told herself she did not care about him. But every evening, she walked to his garden. And every evening, they talked a little longer than before. Taeho taught her how to plant seeds. At first, Vela refused to touch the dirt. It was beneath her station. But Taeho simply smiled and continued working. He did not push her. He did not mock her. He just waited. One evening, Vela finally knelt down beside him. She put her hands in the soil for the first time in her life. It was cold and soft. It felt strange between her fingers. "Now push the seed down gently," Taeho said. "Not too deep. Just enough that it feels safe." Vela pressed the tiny seed into the ground. She covered it with soil. She felt foolish. A princess, playing in dirt like a child. But when she looked at Taeho, he was smiling at her with such warmth that she forgot to feel embarrassed. "Now we water it," he said. "And we wait. For how long?" "As long as it takes. Some seeds grow quickly. Some take months. The important thing is to keep caring for them, even when you cannot see any change." Vela understood that he was not just talking about seeds. The weeks passed. Vela laughed for the first time in years. It happened one evening when Taeho was trying to pronounce Altheran words. His accent was terrible. He mixed up the sounds and said something that meant, "I love eating shoes," instead of, "I love the evening air." Vela laughed so hard that tears came to her eyes. Taeho laughed too. He did not get angry or embarrassed. He simply tried again, getting it wrong in a different way. When Vela returned to her chambers that night, her servant looked at her with wide eyes. "Your Highness," the servant whispered. "You are smiling." Vela touched her own face. She had not even noticed. But not everyone was happy about the changes. Emperor Keldros called Vela to his throne room. He sat on his crystal chair, his cold eyes watching her. "You spend too much time with the human," he said. "He is my husband," Vela replied. "Should I not spend time with him?" "He is a political tool. Nothing more. I did not give you to him so you could fall in love like some foolish girl in a story." The emperor's voice was hard. "Do not forget your place, daughter. And do not forget his." Vela bowed and left without a word. She did not go to the garden that evening. She stayed in her room and stared at the ceiling. She thought about her father's words. She thought about duty and politics and the coldness of her life. 3 days later, she fell ill. The sickness came suddenly. One moment she was fine. The next, she collapsed in the hallway. The palace doctors rushed to her side. They ran tests. They gave her medicine. Nothing worked. Her fever climbed higher and higher. Her silver skin became pale gray. She could barely breathe. The doctors were confused. They had never seen this illness before. They did not know how to treat it. Taeho heard the news and ran to her chambers. The guards tried to stop him, but he pushed past them. He burst through the door and saw Vela lying on her bed, barely conscious. He did not leave her side for 3 days. He slept in a chair beside her bed. He held cold claws to her forehead. He studied her symptoms and asked the doctors questions they had never considered. He remembered something from his medical training on Earth, a rare reaction that sometimes happened when different species were exposed to each other's bacteria. "She needs Earth medicine," Taeho said. "Human antibiotics. Her body is fighting something mine brought here. Something we never knew about." The doctors laughed at him. "Earth medicine for an Altheran princess? Impossible. Dangerous. Foolish." But Emperor Keldros was desperate. His daughter was dying. He allowed Taeho to send for the medicine from Earth. It arrived 2 days later. Taeho administered it himself, carefully calculating the dose for Altheran biology. Then he sat beside Vela and waited. That night was the longest of his life. He held her hand. He sang old Korean lullabies that his mother had sung to him as a child. His voice was soft and rough from lack of sleep. "Please," he whispered. "Please, do not leave. I have not had enough time to earn your respect yet." Near dawn, Vela's fever broke. Her breathing became steady. Color returned to her skin. She opened her eyes and saw Taeho sitting beside her, his face exhausted and worried. "You look terrible," she whispered. Taeho laughed. Tears rolled down his cheeks. "You almost died. And the first thing you do is insult me. Why did you stay?" Taeho wiped his eyes. He looked at her seriously. "Because you are my wife," he said. "Even if only in name. Even if you never love me. Even if you hate me forever. You are still my wife. And I will never abandon you." Vela felt something break inside her chest. Not a bad break. A good break. Like ice cracking in spring. Like walls falling down to let the sunlight in. She had spent her whole life in a palace full of people. But she had never once been cared for. She had been managed, controlled, used, never cared for until now. She reached out and took Taeho's hand. Her silver fingers wrapped around his brown ones. She did not say anything. She did not need to. He understood. Outside the window, in the small garden on the terrace, the seed Vela had planted began to push through the soil. A tiny green sprout reached toward the alien sun. Something new was growing. In the garden. And in her heart. 1 year passed since the wedding. Vela and Taeho were no longer strangers. They ate breakfast together every morning. They walked in the gardens every evening. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. About Earth and Aldera. About dreams and fears. About the lives they had lived before meeting each other. Vela learned that Taeho had once been a soldier. She learned about the war on a distant planet where he served as a medic. She learned about the night when bombs fell on his camp and killed everyone except him. He had tried to save them. He had held his dying friends in his arms. He had screamed for help that never came. "That is why I left the military," he told her one night. "I could not save them. I could not stop the violence. So I decided to prevent it instead. I became a diplomat. I work for peace because I have seen too much war." Vela understood now why he had volunteered for the marriage. He was not running from Earth. He was running toward hope. Toward the chance to do something meaningful. Toward a future where fewer people had to die. She respected him more than she had ever respected anyone. But peace was fragile. And war was coming. The Vornith Dominion had been watching for months. They were an empire of warriors. They conquered planets and took their resources by force. For years, they had avoided Earth and Aldera. But now, they saw an opportunity. Commander Silas led the Vornith fleet. He was tall and cruel, with dark scales covering his body and eyes like yellow fire. He hated weakness. He hated peace. He believed the strong should rule and the weak should serve. When he learned about the marriage between Vela and Taeho, he laughed. "The Altheran princess married a human?" he said to his generals. "The old emperor has lost his mind. He thinks a wedding can protect him. Fool, I will take Aldera. I will take Earth. And I will make the princess watch as I destroy everything she loves." The Vornith fleet began to move. Hundreds of warships crossed the dark space between stars. Their target was clear. On Aldera, the warning came too late. Sensors detected the fleet when it was only days away. Emperor Keldros called an emergency meeting. He sat on his throne, surrounded by generals and advisors. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. "We cannot fight them," one general said. "The Vornith fleet is 3 times the size of ours." "We must negotiate," said another advisor. Offer them something. Anything. Keldros was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke in a quiet voice. Perhaps we should offer them Earth. The room fell silent. Vela felt cold shock run through her body. She stood at the back of the room, watching her father. She could not believe what she had heard. The Vornith want resources, Keldros continued. Earth has resources. If we give them Earth, they will leave us alone. The treaty was never meant to be permanent. The human was just a tool. We can sacrifice him and his people. It is a small price for our survival. Vela wanted to scream. She wanted to run to the throne and shake her father. But before she could move, someone else stepped forward. Taiho walked into the center of the room. He had been standing in the shadows, listening. Now he faced the Emperor directly. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. Colder than Vela had ever seen. You would sell my planet, Taiho said. His voice was steady. 8 billion people. You would let them die to save yourself. Keldros stood up from his throne. Watch your tongue, human. You are nothing here. You exist because I allowed it. I exist because I chose to come here. I chose to leave my home. I chose to marry your daughter. And I made that choice because I believed there was something worth saving in this empire. Taiho's voice grew harder. But if you sacrifice Earth, there will be nothing worth saving. You will just be another tyrant. Another coward hiding behind other people's deaths. The guards moved toward Taiho, but Vela stepped between them. Enough, she said. Her voice rang through the hall. I will not let you touch him. Keldros stared at his daughter with cold fury. You choose this human over your own father? Vela looked at Taiho. Then she looked at the Emperor. She thought about everything she had learned in the past year. About kindness. About sacrifice. About what it meant to truly care for others. I choose to be worthy of the respect he showed me, she said. I choose to be something more than a tool. And I choose to fight. She turned to the generals. Send a message to Earth. Tell them the Vornith are coming. Tell them we will stand with them, together. One of the generals hesitated. Your Highness, the Emperor. The Emperor has shown his true heart, Vela interrupted. He would sacrifice allies to save himself. I will not. Send the message, now. That night, Taiho contacted his sister Hana directly. She was a combat pilot in Earth's defense fleet. She had been worried about her brother for over a year. When she saw his face on the communication screen, she nearly cried. Little brother, she said. Are you safe? Not for long, Taiho replied. The Vornith are coming. They want Earth. The Emperor was going to surrender you to save himself. Hana's face hardened. Was? Vela stopped him. She chose to fight with you. We need your help. Hana smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a wolf seeing its prey. Tell your princess not to worry, Hana said. Earth is coming, and we do not run from fights. She cut the communication. In the dark sky above Earth, lights began to move. Ships were launching. Pilots were running to their stations. The word spread across the planet that war was coming, and humanity was ready. The Vornith fleet entered Altheran space at dawn. Hundreds of warships filled the sky like a swarm of metal insects. Their weapons glowed red in the darkness. Their communication channels broadcast a single message on repeat. Surrender or die. There is no third choice. Commander Scylla stood on the bridge of his flagship. He watched the sensors with satisfaction. The Altheran defense fleet was small, weak. They would fall within hours. And then Earth would follow. Begin the attack, he ordered. The Vornith ships moved forward. Energy weapons powered up. The first shots were about to fire, and then something unexpected happened. New ships appeared on the sensors. They came from the direction of Earth, not hundreds, only dozens. Small, fast ships with strange designs. They moved differently from any vessels Silas had seen before. They did not fly in neat formations. They darted and weaved like angry bees. "What is this?" Silas demanded. "Earthships, Commander. Their defense fleet." Silas laughed. "This is what they send? 50 ships against our 500? They are fools." But Silas did not know humans. He had never fought them. He had only heard stories. He thought those stories were exaggerations. He was wrong. The Earthships attacked without hesitation. They flew straight into the heart of the Vornith Armada. Their pilots did not seem to understand fear. They performed impossible maneuvers. They spun and twisted through enemy fire. They came so close to Vornith ships that they nearly touched them. One Earth pilot broadcast a message on all channels. Her voice was calm and steady. "Attention, Vornith fleet. My name is Hannah. I am speaking on behalf of Earth." A pause. "You want our planet? Come and take it." Then she flew her ship directly at a Vornith cruiser. At the last moment, she fired all her weapons and pulled away. The cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. Hannah's ship emerged from the flames, slightly damaged but still flying. "One down," she said cheerfully. "Who wants to be next?" On Eldora, Vela watched the battle from the Palace Command Center. Screens showed the fight from every angle. She saw the Earthships moving like dancers. She saw them taking damage and continuing to fight. She saw pilots eject from dying ships and then watch their comrades fly past, giving them thumbs up before diving back into battle. "They are insane," whispered an Altheran general. "No," Vela said softly. "They are human." The Altheran fleet joined the fight. They were slower than the Earthships, less aggressive. But together, they began to push back against the Vornith. Ships exploded on both sides. The battle raged for hours, but the Vornith had numbers. For every ship they lost, they had 10 more. Slowly, they pushed through the defense lines. Some of their landing craft broke through and headed for Althera's surface. "Ground troops incoming," a soldier reported. "They are landing near the palace." Tejo stood up from his chair. He had been watching the battle in silence. Now his face changed. The gentle gardener disappeared. Something harder took his place. "Give me a weapon," he said. Thought the Altheran soldiers looked at him with doubt. He was just a human, a diplomat. What could he do against Vornith warriors? Vela handed him a plasma pistol. "Do you know how to use this?" Tejo checked the weapon with practiced hands. "I was a soldier before I was a diplomat. I have not forgotten." "Tejo." Vela grabbed his arm. "Be careful." He looked at her. For a moment, the hardness left his eyes. He smiled softly. "I have something to come back to now," he said. "That makes me very hard to kill." He ran out of the command center before she could respond. The Vornith soldiers had entered the palace. They were big creatures, covered in dark scales and carrying heavy weapons. They killed the first guards easily. They moved through the hallways. Searching for the Emperor Dot, they found Tejo instead. He waited for them in a narrow corridor. The lighting was dim. The Vornith could barely see him. But he could see them. The first soldier never knew what happened. Tejo moved like shadow. One moment he was invisible. The next, the soldier was falling with a broken neck. The second soldier fired at him. The shot missed. Tejo was already behind him. A quick strike to the throat. The soldier collapsed. The other Vornith attacked together. 6 of them, surrounding the small human. They thought he would die quickly. They were wrong. Tejo fought like water. He flowed around attacks. He used their strength against them. He was not bigger or stronger than them, but he was faster, smarter, more precise. Every movement had purpose. Every strike hit exactly where it needed to. 3 more soldiers fell. Then 2 more. The last one tried to run. Tejo let him go. "Tell your commander," he said quietly. "Tell him what you saw. Tell him that humans do not surrender." The soldier ran. Tejo leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Blood ran from a cut on his arm. His body ached. He was not young anymore. Fighting hurt more than it used to, but he was alive. And Vela was safe. That was all that mattered. In orbit, the battle continued. Earth ships fell one by one. But for every Earth ship that died, 3 Vornith ships went with it. Hana led her squadron through impossible attacks. Her ship was covered in burn marks. Half her systems were failing. But she kept flying. "Come on, you ugly lizards," she muttered, dodging another attack. "Is that all you have?" The Vornith were beginning to understand. These humans were not like other species. They did not fight for territory or resources. They fought for something else. Something the Vornith did not understand. They fought for each other. For home. For love. And they absolutely refused to stop. Commander Silas watched his losses climb. His face twisted with anger. He had expected an easy victory. Instead, he was bleeding ships and soldiers. "These humans," he growled. "They are animals. Wild beasts. Perhaps we should retreat," his advisor suggested. "Never." Silas slammed his fist on his chair. "I will not lose to primitives. Prepare my personal ship. I am going to Aldera myself. I will end this personally." The advisor bowed. "And the princess?" Silas smiled coldly. "Bring her to me. I want her to watch her precious human die. Then I will make her my trophy forever." His ship launched toward the planet. The final battle was about to begin. Commander Silas landed at the palace with his elite guard. They fought through the remaining defenders easily. The Altheran soldiers were tired. Many had already fled. Emperor Keldros had locked himself in his throne room, surrounded by guards who were more interested in saving themselves than protecting him. Silas found the Emperor, hiding behind his crystal throne. The great ruler of Aldera was shaking like a child. "Please," Keldros begged. "I will give you anything. Earth, resources, my daughter. Just spare my life." Silas looked at him with disgust. "You are pathetic. You would sell your own child? Perhaps the humans were right about you." He grabbed Keldros by the neck and threw him against the wall. The Emperor fell unconscious. Silas did not even bother to kill him. A coward like that was not worth the effort. "Find the princess," he ordered his soldiers. "And find her human pet. I want them both, alive." Tejo had returned to the command center after his fight. He was bandaging his arm when the alarm sounded again. The screen showed Vornith soldiers flooding through the palace. They were coming from every direction. "We need to evacuate," a young Altheran officer said. "There is a hidden passage. We can escape to the mountains." Vela shook her head. "If we run, they will just hunt us down. And they will destroy everything we leave behind. Then what do we do?" Vela was silent. She looked at the screens. She looked at the Vornith soldiers killing her people. She looked at the burning ships in the sky. She thought about all the lives that had been lost. All the sacrifices. And then she made a decision. "Get me a uniform," she said. A Vornith uniform. From one of the dead soldiers. Tejo looked at her with alarm. "What are you planning?" "Something stupid." She smiled sadly. "Something human." 20 minutes later, Vela walked alone through the palace corridors. She wore a stolen Vornith uniform over her silver skin. She moved carefully, avoiding patrols. She knew where Silas would be. He would be in the throne room, sitting on her father's chair, waiting for her. She was not going to make him wait. Taiho had tried to stop her. He had offered to go instead. He had begged her to find another way. But Vela was determined. "You taught me something," she told him before leaving. "You taught me that real strength is not about being the biggest or the most powerful. It is about being willing to sacrifice for what matters. You sacrificed your home for peace. Now let me sacrifice something for you." "Viola, I love you," she said. The words came easily. She had been waiting to say them for months. "I did not expect to. I did not want to. But I do. And I will not let them destroy you." She kissed him before he could respond. Then she walked away. The throne room doors opened. Silas sat on the crystal throne, looking bored. His soldiers stood around him, weapons ready. "Ah," Silas said when he saw her. "The princess arrives. I was wondering when you would show yourself." Vela walked forward slowly. Her hands were behind her back. Under the stolen uniform, she carried something hidden. "You wanted me," she said. "Here I am." Silas laughed. "You surrender? How disappointing. I expected more fight from a princess who chose a human over her own kind. I did not choose him over my kind. I chose him over cowards. There is a difference." Silas stood up from the throne. He walked toward her slowly, his yellow eyes studying her. "You know what I will do to you? I will make you watch while I kill every human in the system. Starting with that little gardener you love so much. Then I will take you back to my empire as a trophy. You will spend the rest of your life as my slave." Vela smiled. It was not a frightened smile. It was the smile of someone who had already made peace with death. "I have a different plan," she said. She pulled her hands from behind her back. She was holding a small device. It was Earth technology. Taiho's sister had given it to him before the war, just in case. A high explosive charge. Enough to destroy a building. "What are you?" Silas started. "I learned something from humans," Vela said. "They do not surrender. They do not bend. When they are pushed to the edge, they burn. They burn so bright that nothing can stand against them." She pressed the button. The explosion ripped through the throne room. It destroyed the crystal throne. It killed the soldiers standing nearby. It threw Silas across the room, his body broken and burned. And it threw Vela through the wall, out into the cold night air. She fell. The world spun around her. She could not breathe. Her body was broken. She knew she was dying, but she was at peace. She had done something meaningful. She had saved Taiho. She had fought like a human. Above her, in the sky, she saw lights moving. Earth ships. Hana's squadron was diving towards Silas's flagship. Without their commander, the Vornith fleet was confused. They did not know what to do. And the humans showed no mercy. Hana's voice came over all channels. "This is from my brother, you bastards." Her squadron hit the flagship with everything they had. It exploded in a flower of fire. Then another ship. Then another. The Vornith began to retreat. They ran like scared animals, leaving their dead behind. The battle was over. The humans had won. On the ground, Taiho searched through the rubble of the throne room. He was screaming Vela's name. His hands were bleeding from digging through broken crystal. Tears ran down his face. He found her near the garden. She had landed near the flowers they had planted together. Her body was still. Her silver skin was gray. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He pulled her into his arms. He pressed his ear to her chest. At first, he heard nothing. And then, a heartbeat, weak, fading, but there. "Medic!" He screamed. "I need a medic now." Altheran doctors came running. Human medics from the Earth ships joined them. They worked together, alien and human, fighting to save the princess who had burned like a star. Hours passed. Taiho waited outside the medical room. He did not eat. He did not sleep. He just sat there, holding the small flower she had planted months ago. It was blooming now, beautiful and strong. Finally, a doctor came out. Her face was tired but smiling. "She will live," the doctor said. "She will need time to heal, but she will live." Tejo closed his eyes. He held the flower to his chest, and for the first time in many years, he allowed himself to cry with joy. 3 months passed since the battle. Aldera was slowly healing. The damaged buildings were being rebuilt. The dead were being mourned. And a new future was being written. Emperor Keldros was gone. He had survived the war, but his people no longer wanted him. They had seen his cowardice. They had heard how he offered to sacrifice Earth to save himself. The nobles who once supported him turned their backs. The common people demanded change. Vela was named the new empress. She had not wanted the title. She had spent weeks in the medical center, recovering from her injuries. When she finally woke up fully, Tejo was sitting beside her bed, holding her hand. His face was thin from worry. His eyes were red from sleepless nights. "You look terrible," she whispered. He laughed. It was the same laugh as before, warm and gentle. "You almost died. And again, the first thing you do is insult me. It is our tradition now." He leaned forward and kissed her forehead. "I thought I lost you. When I found you in the rubble, you were not breathing. Your heart was barely moving. I thought." His voice broke. He could not finish. Vela reached up and touched his face. "I am still here. Because of you. Everything I did, I learned from watching you. How to be brave. How to sacrifice. How to fight for something bigger than myself. You did not learn that from me. You had it inside you all along. I just helped you find it." They sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, the 3 moons of Allura moved slowly across the sky. The garden was visible from the medical room. The flowers Vela had planted were blooming in the night air. When the nobles came to offer her the throne, Vela tried to refuse. She said she was not qualified. She said she was too young. She said there were better choices. But the people disagreed. They had seen her sacrifice. They had heard her words in the throne room. They had watched her burn like a star to save her people. She was the empress they wanted. On the day of the coronation, Aldera was filled with visitors from across the galaxy. Human ships circled the planet, their pilots laughing and celebrating with their new allies. Altheran nobles stood next to Earth diplomats, sharing drinks and stories. Ha-Na landed her damaged fighter near the palace. She stepped out and was immediately surrounded by young Altherans who wanted to meet the famous pilot. She signed autographs. She told stories about the battle. She showed them the burn marks on her ship like they were medals. When she finally found her brother, she hugged him so hard that he could not breathe. "You stupid, wonderful fool," she said. "You married an alien princess and started a war. Mother would be so proud." "I did not start the war," Tejo said, smiling. "I just helped end it." "Same thing." "You are still an idiot." She punched his shoulder lightly. "But I love you anyway." The coronation ceremony was held at sunset. The 3 moons rose over the crystal palace. Thousands of Altherans gathered to watch. Millions more watched on screens across the planet. Vela walked down the long aisle alone. She wore a gown of silver and gold. Her injuries had mostly healed, though she still walked with a slight limp. Scars covered her arms from the explosion. She did not hide them. She wore them like symbols of what she had sacrificed. At the end of the aisle stood Tejo. He wore a simple human suit, dark and elegant. He was not a king. He had refused any formal title. He said he was happy just being her husband. When Vela reached the throne, the high priest placed a crystal crown on her head. The crowd cheered. Ships in orbit fired their lights into the sky like fireworks. Vela raised her hand for silence. Then she spoke. 1 year ago, I married a human because my father told me to. I thought it was a punishment. I thought I was being sold to primitives. I thought my life was over. She paused. I was wrong about everything. She turned to look at Tejo. This man taught me what strength really means. It is not about power or weapons or conquest. It is about kindness in the face of hatred. It is about patience when others would give up. It is about planting gardens in foreign soil because you believe in tomorrow. She faced the crowd again. Today, I announce a new treaty between Althera and Earth. Not a treaty of convenience. Not a treaty of necessity. A treaty of true friendship. We will share our worlds. We will learn from each other. We will build a future together. The crowd erupted in cheers. Human pilots shouted and whistled. Altheran nobles applauded. For the first time in history, two worlds were truly becoming one. That night, there was a celebration at the palace. Food and music from both worlds. Laughter in dozens of languages. Dancing in dozens of styles. Vela and Tejo escaped to their garden. They sat on the stone bench, looking up at the moons. The flowers bloomed around them, filling the air with sweet scents. A reporter asked me something today, Vela said. She asked how I felt about humans now. After everything, what did you tell her? Vela smiled. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I told her that I married one for peace. And he taught me that peace is not the absence of war. It is having something worth fighting for. She took his hand. And someone worth coming home to. Tejo squeezed her fingers. He looked at the garden they had built together. Earth roses next to Altheran crystals. Two worlds growing side by side. What happens now? He asked. I do not know. There will be challenges, enemies, difficult choices. The universe is vast and dangerous. That sounds scary. It does. It does. She turned to face him, her violet eyes shining in the moonlight. But I am not afraid. Because whatever comes, we will face it together. Empress and Gardener. Althera and Earth. You and me. Tejo smiled. He pulled her close and kissed her gently. Together, he agreed. Always. Above them, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, new challenges were waiting. New enemies were watching. New adventures were about to begin. But that was a story for another day. Tonight, there was only peace. Only love. Only two hearts beating as one under an alien sky. And that was enough.